Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Comix Rant. And I'm your host, Arvin Bautista. Thanks for joining me today. And Comix Rant is all about celebrating comics, namely the ones that I have. In this episode, I'm going to talk about The Phantom Stranger number 34. And this is my copy. It's an old issue. It's an old book. And I've had it for ages and I just loved it. I read it and reread it and you can tell, just by how banged up this sucker is. And this is another book that I've had from when I was collecting in the Philippines. And the first issue of Comix Rant Mini is devoted to Plop, an issue of Plop, which was treated the same way. This is a reprint. So you can tell, because it's missing the price, which I believe was 50 cents or 99 cents that was here, like in nice big bold letters. And you can tell from the back, this is one of those reprints in the Philippines. It was done by National Bookstore Incorporated. And so, you could tell these ads are not US ads at all. What made this great was I could actually afford a copy. I could afford a comic book, an American comic book. And I read the crap out of this book. Look at this thing. It's dying. But I enjoyed the art. The story, everything. Like the whole package. This was just something I really loved reading. I got into The Phantom Stranger with this book. It's not like I'm a diehard Phantom Stranger fan, but it's just done so well in a format that I still really love to this day. It's kind of like these short stories, almost a one and done, really. The only thing that keeps going is The Phantom Stranger, but he goes on different adventures. And I believe it's only 10 pages. And then there's another story that kicks in, which is with Dr. 13, and he's the ghost hunter, ghost breaker. There you go, ghost breaker. And it's like this line of comics that DC was doing, this mystery, supernatural kind of thing. And I believe how National Bookstore figured out which issues to reprint, because they were never in any real good sequential order. This is Phantom Stranger 34. I don't think I ever read Phantom Stranger 1. I don't think I even saw any of their 33 issues prior to this. How National Bookstore would pick it out, at least what I think, is they would find a Filipino artist that worked. So during the 70s, there was this big move of great Filipino comic book artists that worked for American comics. They probably just paid better, and Filipino artists were crazy fast, apparently. And that's what the American artists and workers in the comic book industry would say. So this second one is with art by Tony DeZuniga. And DeZuniga, I believe, spearheaded this move to get Filipino artists working in American comics. And there's a whole history about it. I read about it all the time, and how, Filipino artists were not, looked upon well because they were cheap and they were fast and they were freaking good. So yeah, I'd be a little scared of their talent too, to be honest. Anyway, I never got to see their stuff when I was growing up. This is in the 70s. They had already 71, I think, was when it all started happening. So I never really got to see their stuff in local comic books. So I'm glad that National Bookstore did these reprints so I could see them. And I missed out, guys. I totally missed out. I wish this was my background in comic books, because there's so many great styles and there's a very classic foundation under all of them that I wish I just had. I just don't. So I get to enjoy it like this, like 5 million times with pages breaking up. In any case, Tony DeZuniga is the guy that created Jonah Hex. And I think he created a bunch of other characters for DC, but he's the Jonah Hex guy. And, I like his style. It's definitely got this classic inking look here. Right? Let's dive into Dr. 13 later. Let's start off with Jerry Talaoc with The Phantom Stranger, the headline story, basically, right? And, the thing is, like, when I see the names associated to this, I'm surprised. because I never really knew who the people were until a little later when I wanted to track them down. And the script is by Arnold Drake. Oh, you know what? I just realized it's the script. I wonder if that means it's the story, or did someone else pitch what it would be about? In any case, Arnold Drake is the guy that made Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol, guys! It's pretty cool. So it's kind of neat to see, like, oh, you know, these guys are just working dudes, and after Doom Patrol was done, he moved on and was writing Phantom Stranger. Jerry Talaoc, I believe I also have some of his Comet Man ink work from way back in the day. That's a great story. It's a Marvel book. It's this new character, Comet Man, and I believe it's like Bill Sienkiewicz covers, and I forget who drew the insides. I think Talaoc was the one inking it, but I always liked his style. Like, there's a certain organic flair. There's gestural quality that gets preserved in a lot of the Filipino artists' work, actually. I do see it a lot in Talaoc stuff, and I think that's why I can kind of pick out his stuff. And he has a certain face that he draws, and I love it. It's this brushiness. You know, there's a lot of nice line weight going on here. This very spontaneous brushiness, this kind of core shadow that he defines very quickly. You can tell it's very quick. And also like this really cool organic and angular, like kind of treatment to the line. But it's still curvy. Right? But there's just a lot of knowledge going on with this, how solid this thing would be, the mass of the shape of this cape. And it's just like this nice kind of like gestural quality. And the story's cool because Phantom Stranger just shows up everywhere for most of it. Like, I kind of like this Where's Waldo thing I was doing when I was a kid. I'd see Phantom. Oh, there he is. And oh, whoa, he's right there. There's his shadow. You know, he's right there and nobody sees him. And I kind of like that. This supernatural thing. Oh, here we go. So, you know, I like this style that Talaoc draws in. It's just very fast. You can see here. But there's a lot of knowledge that goes in with making these scribbles, right? Like, it's a certain kind of pattern work that makes it look good. And it's because he's drawn 5 million trees. And this tree branch right here is cool too. A lot of the composition stuff that happens to lead your eye, you know, it's all in here. There's then the group of guys, and you know how it can kind of point you. There's shadow here pointing straight to Phantom Stranger, and then you go, these guys are standing up, so you can go back to this part of the page. And there's this organic quality, that he lets loose, right? Like, this is a flashback. And like this panel border is great. It just kind of bleeds into each other. And the colorist knows that it's a flashback. So it's colored appropriately. So it looks like that. Just really cool sketchiness. And I've always loved the way, like, this kind of old school way of, doing scribble line to add detail. Like, you know, like, you're not going to look at it and go, hey, that's not really a carburetor. But, you know, there's knowledge enough in there to kind of like just draw it real quick and you get the idea. There's like some cool text stuff in here too that I always liked. There you go. Phantom Strangers. Creeping. Giant shadow there. And this kind of squiggle work, I wish I could do. It's just, you know, really quick squiggles, but it's arranged so nicely. It defines this kind of like texture for this frame. Right? Like, you can kind of see it, even though it's just a few lines going on in there. A lot of this kind of stuff, like the folds on beds or clothes. Like, I wish I could do this. There's a lot of I wish. This core shadow here is cool, right? It's just, there's a lot of knowledge. Jerry Talaoc has probably drawn 1 billion of these folds and suits and ties, and it just comes out, and it comes out so naturally. There's a nice gestural quality about this mist and smoke as this chicken is getting draped over this dude. But it's great. The ink work, this kind of ink work that is, not a lot of people do this anymore, and I wish I could. I loved like these faces that he would draw where they have this line that cuts through their chin. Kind of gives you like this really solid macho chin that he always does add into his characters, and I kind of like it. I totally, if you guys know what carbon paper is, this is me tracing over the Phantom Stranger. I did comics when I was a kid. I think I must have been 6 or 7 reading this and rereading it, and I just like this drawing of him. So this carbon paper you put underneath this page, and then if you trace over this guy, it'll transfer your tracing over to another piece of paper. I just had to explain carbon paper. I felt really old. And okay, so here's, let me switch to you can see this stuff is cool. My comic is dying here, but the sound effects are really fun. Okay, so here, this tech, I love this tech. And I grew up, drawing John Byrne style tech, which is very clean lined, Star Trek style paneling, like that kind of thing. And I love it, I wish, but these are cool. Like it's like diodes and like knobs and like all sorts of crazy looking things. And I like the way this tech look at this brain. What brain in a case. Awesome. Right here, here's that tech again. And it's cool, this electricity that's crackling. And again, very gestural. Really hard to capture. It's confidence. That's what it is. Confidence and speed, right? Like, these guys gotta bust it out quick. Even this figure here, as he's like pulling the wires and falling back. And yeah, goopy brain etched into my own brain as a kid. Great shot, like, horror shots that are very EC-like. Crash. All that kind of stuff. The backup feature by Dzuniga is great. He's got a very open quality about the way he draws, open line quality. And like these people, are not, I'm guessing it's pretty much from his head, and he may have reference, but they gotta work fast on a lot of these things. So it's just a lot of knowledge. And I like this ghost. So there's a ghost. Dr. 13's trying to track down this ghost. And I like the way this is depicted. Like the scribbliness of it and how it's kind of like undulating. You can kind of see. See, here's some very classic looking drawing here. Just, very solid drawings from Dzuniga. And there's tech, old school tech that I still really love. There's that ghost again. And what's cool is it ends up that Dr. 13's a skeptic, and nowadays I think Azzarello wrote a book with and drawn by Cliff Chang about Dr. 13. It's more like a comedy. But I kind of like it when it's a little bit more serious, and I understand they have to modernize him, but I just really like these old school tales of mystery and him trying to debunk ghosts in the DC universe. I think that's why that Azzarello book is like that. But it ends up that this guy is like just super fast. He's like a superhero, like the Flash in comic books. Dun dun dun. Really cool stuff. I really loved this issue. You can tell it's just so beat up and banged up. And I taped it up, and what I did was, I'll share this with you guys so you can see, is I redrew this cover. This is a cover by Jim Aparo, by the way, of Batman fame. And I didn't know until I did some research on who drew it, until I saw this signature. Well, one of his signatures, it's like a reverse J and A, Jim Aparo. And I should have known. So this image is always stuck in my head. I like, the tech that was drawn. Again, all this, diodes, and it's, hanging off. His face is peeling off. So Kid Arvin was like, whoa, this is nuts. And, it's all cool stuff. And what I did was I took a picture of this and inked it. And I love my comic so much that I kind of did this homage to the actual book itself. So I inked the tape, guys. I inked the tape that I put on my comic. No one's gonna know that. I inked how uneven it is. Or I redrew how uneven it is, and I colored it. And I inked the scrapes and scratches and how torn up my book is. Because why not? So nowadays I'm in this mode where I'm just inking everything. And I just really love this book so much. I wanted to kind of preserve it and make memories of it again in my art. And I don't know if that's weird, but that's what happens when you get old, guys. So you can see here's the black and whites when I inked it. This was super fun for me to kind of try to figure out, because I would kind of redraw the face. Oops, here we go. Let's get a little closer. See? So the face of the guy and the face of this guy. Kind of like put my own spin on it, so I'm not just like absolutely re-inking Jim Aparo, because, why? Jim Aparo is awesome. And it was fun. It was fun trying to find textures for the clothing and, try to figure it out, try to work with what was there and try to preserve it and make my new memories of it. And so after that, I also knew I had to kind of figure out how to color it and more approach it on this, newer style. So I kind of did some things that would be fun for me, like this lettering of the Phantom would be translucent, or is it transparent? And, I had some hatchwork going on in there. But, I just love this book so much. It's one of my very early comic books that I enjoyed when I was a kid, and I still do, obviously. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's not a modern book, I have to admit, and this is how it is in Comix Rant. I'm not very up to date with all the newfangled books, but I do love to share just how awesome they are with everybody. So anyway, that's it for this episode of Comix Rant Mini. I hope you guys will join me next time.